Hey guys, welcome back to Willa DDT. My name is Irrelevant, and today I got a little bit of spice for you. Easily my favorite deck in the whole game, Blurple Kaido. Like I said, this deck is easily my favorite deck in the whole game. When the set first came out, my initial thought, I always wanted to make a blue and purple deck, and the ability of Kaido just resonated with me. So if you don't know, if Kaido has a Dawn attached to him, the first time you KO one of your opponent's characters, that could be by battle or by card effect, by the way, you get to add one card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Now, the ability to set one Dawn from your deck as active actually has huge ramifications and allows you to unlock a lot of new combos, and most importantly, lets you ramp so fast with the addition of Onigashima that you get your big units out super quickly, and you're almost sort of rushing your opponent down by how fast you get your big units out, and they just cannot deal with it at that time. So you're at like 9 Dawn and they're at 6. So that disparity is super big, and it often turns out to be too big for them to actually come back from. So the idea of the deck is a lot of fun, and you ramp super quickly, get your big units out, and honestly, if played correctly, this can honestly catch your opponents off guard and net you a good amount of wins. It's a lot of fun. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. So with that, let's get right into it. All right, let's start with probably the most important card in the whole deck, and that is, of course, the 4 Onigashima Islands. This is a staple. You always want to see it in your opening hand. You always want to mulligan for it. The deck, with or without this card, you're still able to ramp. That's one good thing about Blurple Kaido leader. However, if you do have Onigashima Island, pair that with your leader's ability, you get to that 7, 8, 9 Dawn play so quickly, and really changes the complexion of the match, and it's super important. So you always want to see this card in your hand. Not much to say about Onigashima Island. Very good. Definitely a staple. We play 4 blocker laws, the 1-drops. This card is just super efficient. It does the job. And I do not play any 2-drop blockers from purple. And I used to play them, but I switched them out for the 1-drop. And the reason for that is this 1-drop obviously gives me a Dawn 1 play, because on Dawn 3 you do want to be playing that Onigashima Island. And if you have this law out on the field, you're not just a sitting duck waiting for your opponent to attack your 4 HP. So I like this change, not to mention the fact that if you have 10 Dawn, you can drop the 9-drop Kaido, and it also gives you 1 blocker instead. So overall, this card feels really good. I definitely like 4 of that. Next up, I think probably the second most important card in the whole deck is actually the 3-drop blocker Doflamingo. So you drop this card down, and you take a peek at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you can rearrange them. The abilities of this is actually limitless. So if you're ahead of the game and you sort of want to close out the game, you're looking for your heavy hitters, you take a look at the top 5. If they're not in there, just throw all top 5 of those to the bottom. That lets you basically skip the next 5 draws that were basically going to be useless for you. So that helps a lot. And of course, if you're in a bad spot and you need a counter, or you need an event, or you need a blocker, you can take a look at the top 5, get what you need, rearrange it, add it to the top of your deck. And this lets you really be flexible with how you want to play. And flexibility is key. And because of that, this card actually is a 3-up and is super good, super useful, and lets you do what you have to do. Next up, we play 2 of the blocker Black Marias, the 4-drops. I played this as well as the 4-drop Boa Hancock from blue. And the reason I play this is usually I don't have an extra Dawn to use to make most out of the Boa Hancock blocker's ability. This, however, lets you survive that Zoro matchup where they want to go wide and attack you a bunch of times with 5,000 power. This card is essentially a 6,000 power blocker, and the -1 done does not hurt you that bad because you're ramping so much anyway. And I found that this card usually ends up being a little more helpful than the Boa Hancock. The +1 card advantage that you get from the blue blocker might be useful, but again, I haven't run into the situation where I was using it as much as I would have liked, so I switched her out for this Black Maria, and it feels really good. So we run 2 of her, and of course, you have to run 4 of the Queens. +1 card advantage. It's just a super good card, super efficient card. 5 done, 6,000 power blocker with a 1k counter, and it nets you +1 in card advantage. This card is just absolutely amazing. Probably one of the best cards in the whole game, if I'm being honest. Really good card you have to run 4 of, sorry. Next up, we run 2 Who's. I took this card out, threw it back in, took it out, threw it back in. You just kind of need it if you want to survive against that red matchup. Really good combo with blue, where you throw a 1 Dawn on Kaido, play the Who's Who, and you actually get to ramp 1 Dawn. And that's actually a pretty nasty combo. Doesn't set you back, actually puts you ahead. Really useful. And this card is just a really good ability and really helpful. Instantly kills a Zoro on the enemy team. I run a 2 of. I think it's really required for that red matchup. Now we're going to move on to our 2k counters. I run 2 of the Sasakis, legitimately just for the 2k counter. I almost never summon him because you have so much ramp already, you don't really need it. Just useful for the 2k counter. We also run 4 of the Mihawks. If I summon this card, I'm in a pretty bad spot, but honestly, its effect is actually really good. Lets you draw 2 and cycle through your deck. If you're in a rough spot, you kind of need an out. This card is a good thing to have in your hand just to give you that out. And also, it's a 2k counter, so it never hurts. Also, lastly, we also run 4 X Drakes. Again, really good card. Forces your opponent to discard a card from their hand. Also a 2k counter. Just a really efficient card, really good. 4 of. Now we get to the big boys. And for the big boys, I run 3 6-drop Kings and also 2 7-drop Kings. You can play with this ratio, but I have found that the 7-drop King honestly does not do much against purple and blue. And because of that, I dropped it to 2 and gave myself another 6-drop King, which is actually very good against that blue matchup. So you can play around with the ratios, but honestly, you're dropping these guys, especially the 6-drop King, like on your 3rd turn, very consistently with this deck. So dropping a 7k counter or 7k power unit that KOs one of your opponent's characters puts you in a pretty good spot, and you can start aggroing yourself. So this is the ratio I went with. Go with what you think feels best. I think this feels best. The 7-drop Kaido, the 7-drop King bricks often against blue and purple, which is why I dropped it down to 2. But against red and green, that card is killer. You always want to see it in your hand. One card that you do want to see always every game is the 9-drop Kaido. This card is really good. You drop it down, it gets rush, and it also KOs one of your opponent's characters that has 6 or less cost. So if you're playing against green, that's usually their 6 cost blocker. In a lot of situations, 6 cost is really efficient removal. And one thing, if you have 10 Dawn, you throw 1 Dawn on your leader Kaido, drop this 9-drop card, and that will actually let you get 1 Dawn back as active, and you can use that 1 extra Dawn to reserve for a Blast Breath or to use for a 1 Dawn blocker, and opens up a lot of opportunities. But overall, this card is really, really good, really, really oppressive, and lets you and puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to deal with or close out the game, or else you will close out the game with this card. Of course, we have the 10-drop Kaido. Really wanted to run 3 but couldn't justify it. This card is a must-have if you want any chance to win that blue matchup. You need it. It's also very good against green, but against red, it's not that great, because you drop it down, you clear their board, and then they draw 2 more rush units or a bunch of small cost units that will get to you next turn. But overall, you kind of just need this just in case for an out. If your opponent builds a board, you have no way out. You always have the 10-drop Kaido to fall back on. So that's everything for the units. We, of course, run 4 Blast Breath. This card is crazy. 1 Dawn, 4,000 counter. The -1 doesn't really matter because you're ramping anyway. Not much to say here. You just need to run this card if you're playing purple. Really good card. What I do run, though, is 4 Love, Love, Mellow. I think this is one of the best events in the game, with one of the best counters in the game, because it gives you 4,000 and you get to draw a card if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. A lot of utility with this card, and really good. You always want to keep this in your hand in case you're in a pretty bad spot. It will sort of bail you out sometimes, so really nice card to have. And we also actually run 2 of the Brachio Bomber. This guy is 6 cost and lets you KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, and then you actually ramp 1. You set one of your Dawn cards as active. So if you have 1 Dawn card on Kaido, you use this ability, you actually get to ramp 2 times, and that will always net you in a 9-drop or a 10-drop the next turn. Really good combo, and really actually a little bit of a sleeper card. Not too many people run this, but I always like seeing it in my hand. Gets you out of some tight situations. And there you have it. That is the deck. You have a pretty basic game plan, wanting to ramp incredibly fast and get to one of your big drops in the middle row here. And once you do, then you can rush down your opponent, because they're probably going to have a pretty hard time coming back from you dropping your 9-drop Kaido on your 4th turn. So the blockers and the counters above, they sort of help you facilitate and sort of stall until you get to that point. And these cards on the bottom, you have the blocker law here as well, fulfill that same exact game plan. The whole point is to survive and ramp, and once you do, then sort of just drop these guys, but you ramp really quickly, and once you're there, protect your big units, and from there on, sort of rush your opponent down and steal some games. Like I said, this deck is easily my favorite deck in the whole game. I have so much fun playing it. I hope you guys try it out. Let me know what you change up, what you add, what you remove, and if you like what you saw, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to see next. And until then, thanks so much.